Thank you for listening to the If You Market podcast. I'm your host, Sky Cassidy. Carla Jo Helms, our co-host, will be out today, but we'll be talking about the art and science of digital marketing with Vicky Sarmiento. Vicky is a digital marketing and communications expert with a decade of experience in the B2B and social impact space. She's currently the marketing manager at Feedmob, where she spearheads branding, content, and digital campaign strategies. She's a proud Women in Tech mentor, nonprofit board member, and has co-produced and emceed TEDx Peace Plaza in San Francisco. Before working in tech, she was a writer for President Clinton and former press secretary at the New York State Senate. In her free time, you can find Vicky with her friends, family, and dog, crafting, playing guitar, creating content, reading, shopping, traveling, and learning new ways to connect with people. Vicky, we're super excited to have you with us today. Thanks for joining.
I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I have a lot of hobbies. It's like, wow, it's a long list. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about digital marketing as it pertains to data as well as creative. So it'll be a fun conversation to have.
Fantastic. Before we really get into digital marketing and the technology of it all and everything, can you tell us a little bit of your story, kind of how you got into marketing, how you got where you're at? You've got quite a background here.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm dating myself. A little bit over 10 years ago, I started my career out in the consulting world in Wall Street. So I worked for a consulting firm that specifically catered to the higher education industry, but we ran their endowments, their financials, their retirement plans. And I started out as an account manager, wanting to do more marketing, business development, communication, something that was a little bit more, people facing on a regular basis. We had a small marketing department at the time. This was like 2007. So really pay-per-click, and people weren't even taking LinkedIn very seriously at the time. Right. Like, I mean, I remember going up to my C-levels and saying, oh, I think we should take LinkedIn seriously. And, they kind of just looked at me like, oh, you're probably a young person that likes Facebook.
They said, focus on Google Plus. That's where it's at, if that even existed yet.
Exactly. So I worked with our principals at the time to launch an omni-channel marketing campaign. And that was really my first taste into demand gen as it pertained to the B2B world. So we developed a market research study. We distributed that market research study across different channels, email, app, communications, press. We got a press shop in to help us make sure that we were advertising correctly across different channels. Again, digital and paid was in a medium that I think a lot of businesses were investing in, especially businesses in Wall Street. But it was a huge success. We doubled our revenue in a couple of years. I became director of business development for that firm, and it was great. We became market leaders. We won all sorts of awards, and I really fell in love with lead gen and making sure that we had really crisp, wonderful content for our audience that helped them. Right, that was about them. It wasn't necessarily about just our bottom line. Simon Sinek talks about this. I don't know if you've ever read his book, Start with the Why, right? Yep. So really starting with the why was figuring out how can I help my clients? How can I help my customers? So that was my first kind of entry into it, but I got an opportunity that I couldn't refuse at the time. I was offered a role as the press secretary for the Senate Majority Leader in New York State. And so, I had to take it because it was a really exciting opportunity to work with press and media, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, NPR, make sure that we were placed all in the right areas, ran different campaigns, worked with the policy department. And so that was an exciting year of my life, being a part of campaigns and really interfacing with media and press and communications as it relates to a personal brand, right? In that manner, the politician's brand. After that, I got a lot of opportunities. I went back to New York City because I was at Albany at the time. It was kind of slow for me. I wanted to really make sure that I was growing with the trend of digital. And as you can imagine, there are certain industries and market sectors that are a little bit slower to adapt digital mediums, right? A/B testing, take these things seriously. And so I really wanted to focus my energy in the startup world, the small business world, the tech world. And so for a couple years, I did everything and anything. I took a pay cut. I read all the books, right? Was following, ran Fish Kid around obsessively. And I remember just saying to people, hey, I'll run your digital marketing campaign, for a chicken leg. Just, I need experience. I want to be able to do it.
What year do you think we were in there? Around what year was that?
This was like I would say 2012, 2013, when I just started doing, working for businesses that wanted to increase their presence in their community and didn't really know how to use Facebook for that and didn't really understand pay-per-click. So I really started doing that, made my mistakes, but also had successes. And then I started to slowly kind of come up with my portfolio. I got a lot of different opportunities working for then tech startups, right? So we kind of transitioned to tech startups with proper product managers and folks that were working with me to make sure that execution was scaling. And that I got in touch with mentors. I, fortunately met the right people that coached me along. And I moved to Silicon Valley a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, to really be in the thick of things in the startup world, working for a digital health startup, and now working in mobile ad tech. So a lot of my journey has been around, hey, graduate from college, don't really know what I want to do. I definitely want to be in front of people with marketing communications. How am I going to do that in an interesting way that I think is abreast with the times, that I think is current and can give me the kind of growth and learning path that I think is most exciting.
Sounds like you got bit by the digital marketing bug really early on in digital marketing, kind of, and then just gravitated more and more into it.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is, so I'm classified by Nielsen as being an older millennial, right? So we're older millennials. And we grew up with the internet, right? I mean, remember pre-Google, it's like Alta Vista, Internet Explorer. And so, I think our generation is fascinated by the inbound nature of queries and also the nature of our digital economy being customer and client centric. And I say that because, I think it's a really exciting time to be a marketer. You're not catering to folks that don't have a need for you. You're doing the opposite. You're trying to find people whose lives you can positively impact. And I think that that is the real power of the conversation that digital marketing brings, right? It's this real time, oh, okay, I can identify the people that really need my help and my expertise, and I can help them with their businesses, with whatever personal branding they need, et cetera. So I think it's really exciting to have this digital ecosystem that really is kind of real-time conversation between a marketer and customers. Yeah.
It allows you to get in front of a lot of the right people, right?
100%. A lot of the right people, right? I mean, oh man. So I don't even, I think that there are some startups that still do this, but right, cold calling was really big when I first started my career. It was kind of, that was your inbound, it wasn't, it was really like outbound, right? I mean, but it wasn't, people were not thinking about content strategy in the same way that they're doing today. People didn't even really, they didn't have pixels. They didn't have things that were really tracking things.
The MarTech wasn't there yet. Yeah. It hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah. You just had you had a list, and you hoped to God that you purchased the right list, and most of them were really bad. you got, your associates to make code calls all day and all night, hoping that, one or two would work out. So
cold calling's coming back. Be careful. That's going to become popular again in the next couple of years.
It's funny. I was in a class at Alchemist Accelerator. So they're a big B2B tech accelerator here in the Valley. And I remember sitting there, and there was a really successful startup guy, and he was like, code calling, and it's not for everybody, but if you know that model is right for you, then having your salesperson code call all day, and you know that the one line of business you're closing is like $300,000, maybe that's worth it. Yeah. So that's, I will caveat that with, right, you gotta work on the channels that really work for you, and that's really where strategy and foundation comes in. But that's
has its place. Yeah, they all have their place. Now, digital marketing, there's so many options now. Before
Mhm.
we get into digital marketing, one more thing. Feedmob, where you're working now, can you speak a little bit about what they do at Feedmob? I mean,
Yeah.
I believe you guys handle both business and consumer marketing. Is that right?
So our clients are really Fortune 100 tech companies, although we represent all brands, but we're specific to mobile.
Mhm.
That's our area of expertise. So FeedMob is a performance-driven mobile demand gen company, and we focus on delivering radically transparent growth solutions to our clients. So I say radically transparent. We actually just rebranded our mission. I say radically transparent because you know this as an entrepreneur and as a marketer. There's a ton of fraud out there, right? There's bots everywhere. I remember naively, I started out in digital marketing and I remember tracking my traffic and being so happy. Oh, wow, look at, we have 100,000 new users coming into our website, but 70% of them were bots.
Right.
Right now in the mobile ecosystem, because we don't have a very regulated system when it comes to traffic, a lot of fraud is happening. And so we specialize in helping our clients identify where fraud is so that they are protecting their investment. There are just billions of dollars that are spent by advertisers, by big companies every year, and billions of those dollars are unfortunately lost to mobile ad fraud.
Yeah.
There was almost 5 billion in 2018 that was attributed to mobile ad fraud, and that more than doubled from the previous year. And I think we know why, right? Because we're becoming more mobile. Businesses are spending more money on the mobile ecosystem and scaling and getting users that way. But unfortunately, with the good comes bad, and the bad players are very good at being bad. And I say that, there's a really interesting article by a reporter called, his name is Craig Silverman. It came out in Q4 of last year by BuzzFeed. There was an investigation with the FBI, and we got really excited here at FeedMob because now it's becoming just a little bit more mainstream.
It
It
speaks
was
to
even
your
picked up
business
by the Wall
model
Street
too. It says
Journal.
this is
It
why we're
does.
here, kind of. Yeah.
Exactly. So big investigation, and they found that not only was there fraud being committed by very sophisticated algorithms, that modeled human behavioral elements. So you could even detect behaviorally that this person was not a real user. But there were shell companies created all over the world, and those shell companies were generating billions of dollars in revenue,
Wow.
millions of dollars in revenue from multiple companies, without the companies even knowing. And this was a huge investigation. It involved the FBI, Department of Justice, Google, 20 other really large ad tech companies. And so this speaks to the gravity of what we're facing right now in the market. It's kind of, it's funny because in the beginning of the conversation I said it's a really exciting time to be a marketer, but it's also a really eye-opening time, right? It's kind of like the post-truth time of of
Yeah.
traffic.
I mean,
So
sales
yes,
at one point was everything. You barely heard about marketing. It was in the background. And then
mhm.
sales kind of got a bad name, as I think Hollywood's partly to blame because the actual salesperson isn't very exciting. So all the movies are about con artists, but they call it sales. So everybody thinks
Mhm.
sales is a con now. That's what salespeople are, con artists. Like, no, there's real salespeople there to get you a real solution, get you the right
Mhm.
product and whatnot. Um, but I think marketing might be going towards that. People don't trust it
Yeah,
anymore. Here, we're paranoid
people
about
don't,
Google AdWords. Even the big
yeah,
companies, you're thinking, oh, just because they're big doesn't
yeah.
mean there isn't something in there that's
Mhm.
designed to, like you said, you see 100,000 people hit your site. How many of those are real people? How many of those are
Exactly.
bots? How many of those are bots
Exactly.
designed by some sales manager at an ad company that just wanted to boost their numbers, but there's only so many people clicking on
Exactly.
that keyword. So they got to do something to
Exactly.
get their numbers up. They can
Yeah.
artificially increase the number of quote unquote people
Mhm.
trafficking. See, I
Yeah.
always when I see
Yeah.
affiliate, it scares me. Most of that fraud stuff I think
Yeah.
has been done through affiliate networks because they can
Mhm.
say, oh, we sign up for this affiliate network, now all we have to do is push traffic through, and then all we have to do is
Yeah.
make traffic. We could go out and do the hard work to
Yeah.
attract people, or we could just make traffic up.
Yeah. And I think that's where, I got really excited when I was shopping around and meeting, basically meeting the founders of FeedMob, because they were focusing on developing not only a team that would have a consultative approach with our clients, but a team that's backed by really sophisticated and amazing technology. And that's where, right, the push and the pull is going to be. How are we going to build an infrastructure and a technology that will be able to identify and test, you talked about affiliates, test networks frequently, just like in marketing, we test our audience frequently. Well, we should be doing that with the kind of spend that, if we're spending, if a company's spending $1 million a month, we should be able to test and come back and say, okay, this is scalable, this is not working, this is kind of fishy, here are the patterns that we're observing. Right. We have sophisticated algorithms for, shoe selling at Instagram. We should definitely have we should have sophisticated tools that can identify fraudulent behavior. So that's really our goal here at Feedmob. And I'm really excited to be a part of the branding team and helping them rebrand and definitely spread the word. So that's great. Yeah,
I guess all the MarTech allows for a lot of really exciting things, but and smaller companies to scale stuff. But now everybody out there that's committing fraud can scale very easily also. They basically can take advantage of these MarTech things. All the little loopholes in every new technology are always there for every con man and fraudster to take advantage of. So you're saying Feedmob has a lot of transparency to kind of help combat that with their clients. That's great. Yeah. When you with your clients, how much of the mobile ad stuff, and I guess we're getting in right into the digital marketing now. We talked about a lot of other stuff first, but how much of the mobile ad stuff that you do is B2B versus B2C?
I'd have to run numbers as far as percentage wise, but so we work with apps, and a lot of the apps are B2C. So they're gaming apps, they're utility apps, they're social media apps, right? So we work with the actual user acquisition managers at these companies to make sure that they're scaling appropriately, they're scaling responsibly, and to also make sure that they really understand the legitimacy of their traffic. And I mean, essentially, we take the burden off of what they would have had to do. And I got to tell you, as a marketer myself, having to figure out, okay, where should I advertise? What sorts of networks should I go to? Okay, should I hire an agency? Should I hire I mean, there's all sorts of things that you need to do on your day-to-day, especially if you have a smaller team, but even with a large scale team, right? I mean, we have a number of people that work on every account, and, we have over 50 people worldwide. And each of our teams, it's not like, right, there's one single point of contact, but there are a lot of resources that come into our clients' accounts. And so if you imagine that if they had to do it themselves, that means that they would have to test every network themselves every week. They'd have to also come up with a product that's keeping abreast of the new trends in fraud. I hate to say that there are new trends in fraud, but there always are there's something new that's, if it's not click spamming, it's something else. If it, it's SDK spoof, there's every, the list gets longer and longer.
That's a great newsletter, by the way. What's trending in fraud this week?
Yeah, so it's like, what's trending in fraud this week? That's, that's kind of, so yeah. So, I mean, most of the companies that we work with are more B2C, but we do work with the marketer and the business division of these companies in order to make sure that they're scaling appropriately and strategically. Yeah.
I guess the more fraud there is in a space, the more you need a guide, because I mean, with the internet, digital marketing, every company can go on and just do stuff themselves. But
yeah, that's 100%.
A space where there's a lot of fraud, there's a much greater chance you're going to go on and just be throwing your money away to some scam artist somewhere rather than actually getting results for it.
Yeah, and I think people, I mean, the clients that we work with are, very, very intelligent, and I mean, they've lots of folks are heads of departments or directors of departments, and I think as it gets more, people are now understanding. Okay, we know that this is a problem. We've seen that this has been a problem, but now is the time where, okay, we really need to do our due diligence. And so what does that look like? And I think that the build of what that due diligence looks like is really going to get solidified in the next decade, maybe even less than that, because of the amount of money that is being lost every year. I mean, this is not a very regulated industry, but I remember reading somewhere that next to illicit drug trafficking, this is the most profitable. Like ad
Wow.
fraud is the most profitable industry. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
So when you look at the numbers and the way that it adversely affects advertisers, which means that on a larger scale, it adversely affects businesses because they're not actually getting users; they're just paying for something that's not there. So, it's a whole pattern, and I think that you're going to see this unravel, particularly in mobile. Certainly, I mean, this is a problem in desktop, etc. But you're going to see that unravel in the next few years. So it's an exciting time, also scary time, but exciting
So
time for
that's
us
really
because we're
interesting, really scary, because I know we're paranoid
yeah,
over here, but you're kind of reinforcing our paranoia. We're
yeah.
not paranoid. We're
But
just cautious.
remember, we're starting with the why, so we're happy to. It's a problem, and it's an interesting, really interesting problem to solve, right? Data scientists, data is involved, heavy data analysis to figure out what are the patterns, and I think that that's a really interesting problem to solve. So we're
Yeah, I
excited.
mean, I guess it exists in every space. It's not like it's only
It
exists
does
there. Anywhere where there's money, there's going to be people trying to commit fraud to get it. I know in our
exactly.
space, we provide business contact information. We ran into a company just the other day that thought their data was amazing. They were
Hmm.
selling data. They had a great level of accuracy. Their emails don't bounce. They say our emails
Hmm.
don't bounce. We have fantastic data. We look into the data and we say, yeah, your emails don't bounce because apparently you've developed a technique for collecting emails that won't bounce. An email not
Hmm.
bouncing doesn't mean the person's still there. And that's one of those
Yeah,
areas where,
exactly.
that industry's changed over time. It used to be if an email didn't bounce, then the person was there. It was
It was
good.
great.
And then things adjust, things adjust, things adjust. Now a large portion of emails won't bounce. You'll never know. In fact,
Hmm.
it's designed to not tell you if the person's there anymore. But if
Hmm.
they just keep removing the ones that do bounce and only keep the ones that don't, eventually they just ended up with a giant list that it isn't a new business list. Their clients can go and send campaigns out to it and they won't get bounces and they'll be happy and they can
Hmm.
use the high-end tools that really look at the bounces closely and a HubSpot or something like that, and
Hmm.
the campaign will be fine because these emails are all designed not to bounce and
Hmm.
they don't go anywhere. I mean, it's one step away from just creating massive amounts of fake emails yourself to assure they won't bounce.
100%.
It's very similar to
100%.
the ad fraud.
Exactly.
Yeah, people,
Yeah.
I don't think these people did it intentionally. They just weren't that good at the data. They didn't bother to look into it that far. And I'm sure their clients are
Hmm.
saying, hey, this is great. Emails aren't bouncing, but we also aren't getting any business from it. That's odd.
Hmm. Yeah,
Why are we
weird
getting
that.
business? Like,
Weird that we have 100,000 downloads and
yeah.
no one is making a post purchase. This is weird. Yeah,
Or
so
just, yeah, we send 100,000 emails, zero bounce, but also we don't see any traffic
no
coming.
one's replying.
Or
100%.
actually now they even get traffic from the website and it's not fraudulent. It's the filters are checking the links to make sure that the links
Hmm.
are accurate and they don't go somewhere that has a virus on it and whatnot. So
Hmm.
they'll actually see traffic. Oh, we got a bunch of clicks coming through. That's great. Yeah,
Hmm.
you can collect emails that will just, all they'll do is not bounce and click through to your website and you'll get the traffic and
Hmm.
everything, but you'll get no sales coming through from it. And
Exactly. And
uh,
that's a problem. That's a problem. Yeah.
even with all the MarTech we have, a lot of people don't track it that far. Or by the time somebody finds out because all the other numbers look good, they've moved on to
Hmm.
another company. It's
Hmm.
we made a joke recently in one of our what we call Marketing Marvin. He's the world's worst marketer. He was bragging. We do this little cartoon strip. He was bragging about how he was really moving up and progressing in his career because he'd been at 5 companies in the last 3 years, so he was in high demand. And pretty soon he was going to get move somewhere and move up to the manager level. And it's like, yeah, you see a lot of people that way in marketing. I think they shift around constantly and kind of stay
Hmm.
ahead of the lack of actual results in their marketing. And I always say that's a really
Yeah.
bad sign
Yeah.
when you see a marketer that's been at 5 companies in 3 years. It doesn't mean they're in demand. It means they're on the run.
Yeah.
Um, Getting back to the kind of core of digital marketing, can you
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
over some of the basic stuff here on not necessarily what you guys do at Feedmob, but let's talk about digital in general, the different platforms that you've worked with, kind of your favorite platforms, maybe that kind of stuff.
Oh man, I've worked with so many. Okay, so I'm gonna say what I usually say to folks when they ask me what they should use. It depends. It's like it just depends on the size of your company. Are you a startup? Are you a big enterprise company? Because different tools are going to cater to your type of business. I am a really big HubSpot fan. So that's a marketing automation tool. They have a sales CRM, but they also have a marketing automation tool. Now I say that because I'm a B2B marketer, and I think that the best business to business marketing divisions work very closely with their sales team. And I say that because in the beginning of any marketing cycle, there is going to be eventually some sort of trigger that you hand off to sales, right? And that's you designing your own funnel and figuring out what your attribution model is. But I like HubSpot because I've worked with small and medium-sized businesses. Now, I'm going to caveat that with there's Salesforce and Marketo out there, and larger scale businesses have said that this is just hearsay from the marketing world, right? A lot of marketers in the marketing world, that they can host their data more appropriately because there's just much more coming in. But I really like HubSpot because I think that their tools are user friendly. They make marketing automation really easily. There's lead gen scoring that you can build that's customizable. I think that they really import your data in a seamless manner. And they give you, they give you a dedicated rep, and they always give you a technical channel. So I do think that HubSpot, if you are ready for that stage. Now, again, I say ready, and do you have email lists? Do you have a specific set of data that you want to start tracking? Have you built out your funnel? So that's, I think that getting to the automation tools, you need to start with step 0, which is your foundation as a marketer. And working for startups and medium-sized businesses, it's, you'd be surprised. A lot of people don't identify who their audience is. They don't know, they've never went through persona building. Really, it's right. Just the basic, hey, where are we going to scale? Where are we looking to grow? And also, if I have my audience that's identified, I've done some market research, right? I've read Nielsen, I've read different articles about my base. If this millennials, maybe it's an older Gen X, right? You have to identify that with your C-levels. And once you get that, you can then say, okay, what social media channels are they using? What sorts of advertising mediums makes the most sense? In the B2B world, LinkedIn is very popular, right? Because professionals go on LinkedIn, right?
But very expensive too.
But they're very expensive.
Very expensive,
Exactly.
yeah. Although if you're getting your values worth, you really have to crunch down, like we were talking about before. Very 100%. Expensive, but break it down. Not, I guess one of their salespeople would probably tell you, what's the value of the lead versus you can get 10 leads for the same cost somewhere else. But if 9.5 out of 10 aren't real people, what good does that do you?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, so tools. Typically, when a website is built, I always like to make sure that you have your Google Analytics in there, Google Search Console. That's just basic low-hanging fruit, right? They're free tools. You can get the crawlers in place to figure out what people are searching for. Once you identify, like I said, your audience and your holistic strategy, and it's really important to come up with a strategy, right? You can't just say, oh, let's come up with flyers. I think that this is my target demographic. Let's go after them. It really needs to be a very specific strategy that you need to work with in tandem with your stakeholders on creating. But once you have that, right, you can identify, all right, now I've built my website. Now I have Google Analytics, Search Console, all of the webmaster tools I need. Maybe you put in Hotjar, right? That's heat mapping. You can see kind of for every page in your website where folks are going. You also want to make sure that any sort of call to action is linked to something that's trackable. So whether it's MailChimp or, if you go with an automation tool like HubSpot, you need to make sure that it's connected to your website in a way that you're able to track the behavior of the folks that are going into your site. But once you identify the advertising mediums, you then need to make sure, right, like, okay, is my Google business set up? Is it, right? Do I have, if I want to go down the Instagram route, do I have the business account set up? Okay, I need to now figure out how to implement the pixel in the back end of my website, right? So that foundational layer is really important, and it's so easy to not do that early on but the more data you have, the better you will be at building your marketing strategy and iterating in the future. Now, I say that because I cannot tell you how many people and how many clients and companies have come up to me and said, hey, I want to increase our leads by 50% by the end of the year. And you know, I need to go back to them and say, well, what's your data looking like? And they have no idea. So,
Right,
so
right.
in order to
Say, please tell me you get one lead a year, because I can make it 2, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I mean, working on your KPIs, right, your key performance indicators, can only really be done if you have a base foundation of an understanding of what is even realistic. How many people really are coming to our website? Okay,
Right.
of those amount of people that come to our website, really, how many leads are we getting from there? Okay, then you can say month over month, I think it's realistic to increase this by 5%, whatever your KPI is. But
What's your
until you
universe?
have
What's the market out there? You mentioned crawlers earlier to figure out what people are searching for. You can also figure out what people are searching for overall online. And if you know, if you expect to increase your leads past the amount of people searching for those terms online through digital marketing, good luck, because if they're not there, I don't know how you're going to, you know, unless you put up a billboard driving them online to search for those terms, you kind of have to know what the market is, I guess. So back to the fraud, you touched on something that made me think, you know, people are afraid of fraud in digital marketing, but what do you think about fraud versus just folly, I guess I'd say, versus people saying, oh, I want to double my, you know, my leads, so I'm going to put twice as much money into XYZ, and they're not basically the leads are bleeding out through their system somewhere because they're throwing attention at something, but they don't have it set up properly. Like you said, being able to track the call to actions, that kind of stuff. You can throw a lot of money somewhere and most of it bleeds away just because you didn't put a tracking link in the site.
Exactly.
So do you think fraud is a bigger problem, or do you think just people not setting it up to actually take advantage of what they're pouring money into?
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of both. Fraud is a little bit more sophisticated in that, you know, tracking individual people visiting your website gets more finessed. As you run your marketing campaign, right, you get their information, you know exactly who they are and what their title is, etc. But in the meantime, there's a lot of traffic coming in. Unless you participate in something illegal, like, you know, stalking every individual's phone, which is not, you know, not accessible because of privacy laws, fraud is going to happen, you know. And so getting third-party tools and vendors and folks that are experts in the space to really help you, I think, is really paramount, especially as the industry is evolving every day. And so it's good to have somebody that's in there with you every day that really is making this exactly what they work on, and, you know, they live and breathe. As far as setting it up, I think every marketer has set something up incorrectly. Everyone. There is not a marketer that has even made it to their senior level ranks in their company that hasn't done something incorrectly with regards to their tracking and attribution.
We were talking about startups earlier, and a similar thing came up. It was, you probably don't want to work with a marketer that hasn't set something up improperly. It just means they haven't done enough.
That's 100% accurate. Because every system is different. You know, and the thing with advertising tools is they change all the time. You know, all of a sudden now LinkedIn has a dashboard, right? Whereas Facebook had a business dashboard for a while. And so there's this constant learning curve that excites me, as, you know, that's part of the reason why I went into digital marketing. I was like, oh, great, lifelong learning, because it's never going to end, right? But maybe daunting. And so it's good. It's really important to take a step back and understand realistic expectations and build your foundation correctly. Now, does that mean that you're going to make mistakes, but you don't have to lay the foundation of 10 different channels to begin. Just start out small, right? I mean, make sure that you have your base in place, right? So like I said, right, Google Analytics, Google Search Console, make sure that you understand how to use search tools, right? People use Uber Suggest. I've heard really good things about that. Google Keyword Planner, if you have a bigger budget, SEM Rush, right? Like really understand, okay, how can I couple that with my overall marketing strategy when it comes to advertising and when it comes to content?
Right.
And yeah, so that's, you know, I would say it's twofold. I mean, it's half and half, right? Like fraud is a little bit more sophisticated of an answer, because I do think that it's just going to be there, unfortunately, but we're going to try our best to combat it by getting more intelligent ourselves as marketers in this ecosystem. But as far as doing the groundwork, you have to take your time to do it. Don't rush, just because if your VP and CEO or director are saying, oh, we need to get this done, in a month, give them a timeline, give them the pros and cons. I mean, I think that that's something I made a huge mistake in the beginning of my career by not advocating for myself intelligently, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you go to your stakeholder and you say, I think you're wrong. It just means you really need to have an understanding of how long these things take. And
Right.
and everybody thinks marketing takes a day.
So if
And
they
it
say I
doesn't.
need it in a month, maybe you tell them, hey, I need a month and a half. I need 2 months. Don't say no.
Yeah.
Don't say you won't do it. Yeah, you can do your best, but really you need 2 months, a month and a half, whatever it is you feel like you actually need
Or
done.
or you say, hey, here I can do these two things very well, or
Right.
I can do these five, maybe get it up and running, but they won't be 100% perfect.
Yeah. In a month, I
Hey,
can get this set up and then I'll add these other things as we go along. I guess I was
yeah,
thinking about the fraud, and I hate to talk too much about fraud, but they're looking for low hanging fruit. So you may
100%.
make mistakes, you may open yourself up at some point. As long as you're constantly
Mhm,
reviewing stuff, when things don't make sense, you look into them. I think that's the number one thing for us here is
mhm.
when something doesn't make sense. We look at something, we're just like that's off. Something's off there. Look into it, figure it out. Why is it off? It's almost always off for a reason. It isn't just, oh no, those numbers were just way off at that time, or
Mhm,
they didn't seem like they
mhm.
made sense, but I'm sure they do. You look into it, you usually find that there's a reason it's off. And sometimes it's
Exactly.
some sort of fraud, and sometimes it's just, oh, there was an adjustment made here by this MarTech or whatever it is.
Hey, this is Patrick McFadden, founder at Indispensable Marketing. If you're a professional service provider or a B2B business owner and you're struggling to attract your best clients and also charge a premium for your service, I think you should really check out our website at indispensablemarketing.com. You'll find some great resources there. And if you want to reach out, just click our free consultation button.
One thing you're talking about
100%.
putting stuff into different channels and what to go after and not trying to go after everything. I think this came up when we were talking once before, and I just made a note on it that when you're starting out early on, it's a really good idea, and even for larger companies, but to find the undervalued channels. You were talking about
Yes.
being into LinkedIn early on, and then really over investing
Mhm.
on those. I was talking to somebody the other day about, and they were talking about investing in Facebook ads and how for a long time they were really undervalued, and that anybody who
Mhm.
knew what they were doing should have been pouring every dime they have into Facebook ads because they should have cost twice as much.
Yeah.
The market wasn't aware of it, so they were coming in undervalued. But as long as people don't know it's there, and a lot of times with these technologies and new platforms and stuff, until people know about it, it's really undervalued, and you can get way more out of it
Yeah.
than
Totally
you
invisible.
see
Mhm.
Facebook really raising their prices up now because
Yeah.
people are realizing, wow, look what you can do with this platform. You can really move
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I mean, I don't know if, do you remember when, so folks were spending money on Facebook, and I remember the day that Facebook finally kind of had broken into the market, gotten so popular with their advertising that they took away the ability to advertise to all of your fans that you kind of built up in your own page. And man, that day was like the day of reckoning for everybody in digital marketing is just like up in arms. Right, we built 100,000 followers ourselves organically, and now you're telling me that I
Right,
need to pay to play to reach out to the people that have gone to me. Now I can
right.
only reach out to. I remember when that happened. It was like it was like an earthquake. And so you're right. I mean, I think identifying channels early on that again can really give you the biggest bang for your buck as far as audience is concerned, and prospective customer is really important, because once a tool becomes popularized, now you don't have access to the same audience, and prices are going to go up.
Right.
It's just it's just the way of
And
the
it stops
market.
working too. It just thinks once with marketing, once
There.
everybody's there, now it doesn't work anymore
Mhm.
because everybody's there. People get desensitized to
Yeah,
it, and it's moving on to the
exactly.
next place where they're still open to receive your message, kind of.
100%. Exactly.
So I think we're going to push straight through here, and
Okay.
there's going to be an odd at some point. It's already happened to all the listeners, but there's going to be an odd break in the middle where we take a break. We'll just cut it in there. I've been enjoying talking to you so much. We didn't even stop to take a break here. So we'll keep pushing through, covering more in digital marketing here. Is there anything? It's such a big topic. We're jumping around all over the place. Is there anything
Mhm.
you really want to get to and make sure we can dig into here?
I want to, just for folks who are listening that are really trying to figure out, okay, how can I lay the foundation? I do want to maybe slow down and just talk about what, kind of like step 0, then 1, 2, 3. Because I think we went all over the place with regards to tools, and just because there's a lot, right? I mean, there's so many tools. There's a new social media automation platform all of a sudden, that's getting a lot of acclaim. Before you even go down the, okay, now here's strategy and here are my tools, etc. Remember that as a marketer, you work with every department in a company. I mean, I talk to our product people all the time. I talk to our sales people all the time. I even talk to our engineers, and I talk to our C-levels. Gathering momentum around a process is really important as a marketer. And I say this having worked, in early stage startups, it's a very reactive atmosphere. But hopefully, when a company is ready for marketing, and I really believe this, they've already built their product. Okay, and I remember I was talking to Sky, so this is even before we went on air, we were talking about startups, and I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of startups that don't have a product yet, and they try to get marketers and salespeople in, and they don't have it wasn't test, they don't have product market fit, and so, hopefully by the time you're ready for a real marketing strategy, you already have product market fit, you already have a great audience and a great product. And so, I mean, I would say that ground zero is just making sure, can I market this? I mean, and I say that because part of the reason why I love marketing now is because as much flack as I think sales and marketers get, I do think that customers are empowered now. They can cut through your BS. They can know if your product is working or not. And so, understanding that is really important even before you take a marketing job, right? Really understand, is this product really good, and does it have potential? Is there product market fit, that sort of thing? And then start a process. I mean, I'm a big process oriented person. If you can come up with workflows, like I use draw.io to come up with workflows with different departments that will streamline things really well. And it'll get you to get to know each department and really respect their process as it relates to marketing. Because marketing is, particularly at small, medium-sized companies, you're going to have to lean on your product people to explain what your updates are so that you can tell your customers what's going on. You're going to have to lean on your C-levels to write really industry-leading articles because they've been around the block, and their technical acumen is large, right? So that's, I would say that I just want to make sure that the audience understands, especially if you're a person that is starting to build out your marketing division, understand that working with different departments and having a process is really, really, really paramount. And then you can get to, cool, now I can come up with a strategy. Now I can define my audience and have my personas in place. And now I can figure out, okay, what foundational tracking do I need to build? And what's my realistic, what campaigns can I run the next few quarters? Maybe that means you don't run a campaign this quarter. Maybe it means I'm going to get
it seems like you're saying that the early on marketing is just much more kind of a boots on the ground. I guess once companies get bigger, the marketing kind of their products develop its own gravity. And then the marketing is much less about the features and the product because it already has its own gravity, and more about the branding and the general messaging and whatnot. So you're saying smaller companies, you really, really need to know the product much more and be integrated with everybody else in the company so much more to do the marketing. You can't just come up with a nice sounding catchphrase and expect people to show up and buy or something.
Yeah, I know that this is going to sound, I don't know if it's an Oprah Winfrey-esque, but you got to believe in what you're marketing. You have to understand and believe in what you're marketing, because the kind of content that you develop, it's like day and night, right? You hire a marketer and they just make your case study pretty word. But if you don't believe in what you're writing and if you don't believe in your company or what you're representing, it's going to be more difficult for you to come up with really good original content that allows people to relate to you in such a way, right? Because it's, like I said, I think that customers and clients, they're very sophisticated buyers now. They can tell, Sky doesn't really mean it. I don't even really know if he cares about it. They can tell, and so And so I'm pretty adamant, and I tell folks that I work with about this, about making sure that they really understand what they're delivering. And once you do that, kind of dovetails into, okay, what's my realistic timeline, and how can I work with my stakeholders to implement correctly? Yeah.
You mentioned draw.io, I think, in there.
Yeah, Draw.io, it's a free tool, the Google plugin. I like to create workflows. So it's just kind of, okay, here's my I create a little bubble. You say, okay, this is step one. And then this department comes in. And it's a nice little free sketch feature that allows you, it's, everybody probably that's listening understands whiteboarding. So this is kind of like whiteboarding, but you're digitizing the whiteboard. So that way you can present something more streamlined to whatever department, whatever stakeholder you're talking to. So I really like that. Of course, have a creative staff, right? I mean, if you're an Adobe user, good to have things like InDesign and Photoshop handy, and know how to use them. If you are going to be working on website or mobile features, Adobe XD is kind of comparable to Sketch. Our designers use that. Organizationally, if it's Google Cloud, or it's Draw.io, or it's Asana, which is a company that uses organization within divisions so that it's streamlined workflows, use those things, right? I mean, come up with a really good solid roadmap. And then you're creative, if you want to start to create multimedia outside of blogging and case studies and white papers, get a good webinar tool, right? We're using Zoom now. We had mentioned this earlier, but go-to webinar is also something that I have used in the past that I think is good. Make sure you have A/B testing features once you start running campaigns. Optimizely is pretty popular. If you don't have the budget for Optimizely, this is another thing about digital marketing. There are so many growth hackers out there that there are free tools everywhere. You can go to abtesting.com. And if you're running small tests and you have a large audience, you can use abtesting.com. You can just plug in your numbers.
And half of these MarTechs have, even the large ones, have some sort of a freemium model. They have some sort
100%.
Sometimes it's just a trial, but if you're small, they probably have a free version designed for you because they want you in their platform once you get big.
Yeah, that's right. MailChimp is a great example. I think the limitation is 2,000 emails, and if you have less than 2,000 emails in your list, you can use their service free. MailChimp's really interesting. They've rebranded, and now I think they're competing with the more holistic automation tools. Right now, they have landing pages and things like that, whereas it used to just be traditional email marketing. And I think that's pretty much going to be the way that all marketing automation tools are going to go. They're going to try to be like the one-stop shop and get more users that way. So yeah, MailChimp is really good. But like I said, if you have the budget and the resources for HubSpot, you have a couple members in your team that can help you with content and lead gen and the analytics. And I think HubSpot is really good. Social media. So assuming you have a social media strategy and you know what channels you want to use, I highly suggest a social media automation platform. Sprout Social is popular. It's pricier than Hootsuite, but Hootsuite is probably the most well-known. It's been used for a while. Buffer is really popular, especially in the small startup world, because it's free to use and it's pretty user-friendly.
And just so that for the listeners also, we will grab these out and put them in the show notes, so you don't have to frantically scribble down. And I'm probably too late. Half the people have already done that, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they're type A like you and I, I'm sure that they are like writing it down. But yeah, you'll have it in the show notes. So that's kind of off the top of my head, things that I can think of. But there's other, like I've heard great things about Wistia. Video is really big now, so they're an organization that handles videos, right? Like even 2-minute content video segments. But you can cut your own videos either through Final Cut or Premiere. Even iMovie does a decent job. It just depends on what sort of production quality you want. But those are the tools that I've used. I am positive that I've used more tools because I've probably tried out so many tools throughout my career, and there are new tools that I'm going to try out probably in the next month. So it's
half the tools I've used aren't even here anymore, or they got bought by another company. So,
yeah, exactly. So
you can't possibly name them all.
Yeah, and that's again, right. I'm an enthusiastic digital marketer, but the other thing that's exciting about this era is just the amount of companies that are coming up with great products, and they want you as a user, so they'll give you a month for free you could test it out. They'll discount you just because they want you to use their product. So, watch out for rising stars that are being written about. I don't know, what industry blogs I read, or Copy Blogger is really good for content writing. I really love Ann Handley and Brian Clark. Anything Rand Fishkin is great. He's working for a new organization called SparkToro, but he basically is, the grandfather of all things SEO. He started SEO Moz. Neil Patel is a really good one. If you really want, I love Gary Vaynerchuk. He's controversial guy, but I think that
he's
he
fun
does
to
a really
listen
good
to,
job.
whether you like his ideas or not. He's very fun to listen to. So
he's hilarious. But Jab, Right Hook, I think, is a very good foundational book for folks that are just getting their feet wet in social media and trying to understand how to present it to stakeholders, but also how to really utilize each tool appropriately. Even though it's kind of that was written a few years ago. It's the principles around it are I think are really important.
I'll pile on and say, if somebody's trying to learn more about digital marketing, you said it moves so fast.
It moves so fast.
You got to listen to a lot of books, listen to podcasts, the stuff she's throwing out there.
Listen to podcasts.
We cover marketing in general, but podcast is one of those areas that, we put out a podcast for content. And we like having people like you come on and share all your ideas and everything you know. And I listen to so many of them. I listen to audiobooks. I listen to podcasts. I don't have time to read. I'm a slow reader. So I just listen to an audiobook and I crank it up to 1.5 or 2 and blow through it. Same thing with podcasts. Most of them, I'll sound a little bit like a chipmunk, but if you listen to this on a faster speed, your brain adjusts, you absorb it all, and you can get through more on your drive home